Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We take the sources you send us, articles, notes, videos, you name it, and we really get into them. We distill the key insights so you can get up to speed quickly and really understand the core ideas. And today, we've got a really interesting one. It came from Brad Barfield down in Crossett, Arkansas. Brad, your enthusiasm was, well, infectious. You sent us some material and said, this guy right here is a fresh breath of air. You don't find too many that can or have the balls to speak truth to power.
That's quite the intro he gave us.
It really is. And he asked us specifically, please lead me and my audience through what this guy is working through. So that's exactly our mission today. We're going deep into the source Brad shared for the Southern Men video by Robert Arnold. We're going to unpack his perspective, his arguments, really try to understand what he means by true Southern manhood, how he sets it against this new standard he talks about, and crucially, what speaking truth to power looks like through his specific lens. Because the source itself, I mean, it's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Very vivid language, a clear, passionate argument. He doesn't leave much room for doubt about where he stands.
No, he certainly doesn't. And what's fascinating here, I think, is not just how articulate and, well, passionate it is, but the sheer, almost archetypal contrast he draws. It's like two completely different worlds he's painting.
Exactly. Polar opposites.
Polar opposites, yeah. And throughout this deep dive, we're going to really focus on unpacking his perspective, his definitions, just as they are presented in the source. Our goal isn't to agree or disagree, but to really illuminate the framework he's using.
Right. So you, the listener, can fully grasp the picture he's painting, understand his terms, his arguments.
Precisely. We want to understand the specific truth he feels he's speaking and the power he sees himself addressing, based entirely on the material provided.
That's a perfect setup, because he does build this almost mythological divide, doesn't he? So let's start at the core. His definition of the true Southern man. What does that look like according to him?
It goes beyond stereotypes, I think. Oh, absolutely. He starts something really fundamental. Authenticity and integrity. He insists a true Southern man is, quote, almost always real.
Almost always real. Okay.
And it's not just, being genuine on the surface. He presents it as this deep inner quality that actually shows up physically. You can almost feel it in his descriptions.
How so?
Well, he says you can hear it in the callous vows of his draw and see it in the crack of his knuckles. It's like his life experience, the hard work, is literally inscribed onto him.
So the physical aspects are manifestations of character.
That's exactly how he frames it, yeah. It suggests the real measure isn't the public performance, but what he says and does when no one is looking, that private honesty.
No, consistency?
Right, consistency. He says true manliness resides in the quiet things, the hard things, the true things. And he uses this fantastic analogy.
Which one?
He says a man is measured by the weight of his word and that he stands on dirt, not marble.
Dirt, not marble. Wow, that's evocative.
Isn't it? Dirt connects him to the earth, humility, groundedness, while marble suggests something cold, maybe polished, superficial. It's a call for internal validation, not outward show. Character isn't just internal, it's like a physical mark.
That image, dirt, not marble, it really flows into the next quality he highlights, doesn't it? That grounding seems key.
It really does.
So the second pillar he emphasizes is resilience and self-reliance. He uses the phrase, poor but proud, which isn't just about money, is it?
No, not at all. It's about inherent worth, dignity earned through effort, regardless of wealth. It's about capability. He says this man can bait a hook and throw a punch.
Practical skills signifying self-sufficiency.
Exactly. Able to handle things himself. And it's not just physical resilience. He talks about them being able to grin through pain and stand up even when the wind blows hard against them.
So an unyielding spirit.
Right. Refusing to buckle under pressure, physical or, emotional. And he links their worth directly to actions, not just words or who their daddy was.
Actions like what?
Work, service, sacrifice, building, and fixing. And he makes a point of saying they would not inherit wealth or lie about it. That's a direct hit at unearned status.
Yeah, you can feel the critique there.
Definitely. And then comes maybe the most visceral metaphor he uses. He says these men possess the goddamn backbone that built barns and fought wars and buried family.
Whoa, okay. So backbone isn't just posture.
Not at all. It's moral strength, it's historical endurance, it's commitment, it's the foundation. He says they don't bend and they don't cower. It's all about grit, practical skills, weathering storms without breaking, Those are the real markers for him.
That backbone idea is powerful. It suggests something deep, almost inherited, but earned through living, not just bloodline.
Precisely. And building right on that, he lays out a very strong sense of moral character and respect as absolutely essential. It's not just about being tough. There's a strict code.
What did that code involve?
Humility and loyalty are key, but the core standard is how you treat people, especially those who, quote, can't do a damn thing for him. So it's about genuine decency, not self-interest. Kindness without expecting payback.
Exactly. A moral compass pointing towards basic human respect. He even adds a layer of emotional depth, saying this man knows how he loves when no one else understands, suggesting a quiet capacity for deep feeling.
Which balances the toughness.
It does. But that respect has very firm boundaries. He says a true Southern man would never tolerate disrespectful public behavior, especially towards family or, well, anyone, really.
And he gives examples of what crosses the line.
Oh, yes. Very specific ones that he says turn his stomach. Things like mocking disabled people, insulting widows, bragging about assault, spitting vile at working folks. These aren't just bad manners in his book, they're deep moral failings.
Fundamental violations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he ties this moral compass directly back to upbringing, mentioning steel and iron women who instilled consequences.
Right. So these values aren't just abstract ideals, they're taught, enforced.
Yes. It suggests honor is tied directly to how you treat the vulnerable and stick to that communal code. It's deeply ingrained. That mention of the steel and iron women really grounds it, doesn't it? Shows where that moral code comes from. Okay, so let's shift to courage and conviction. This isn't just physical bravery, is it?
No, it's more profound than that. It's the moral courage to speak truth, even when it's hard, even when it means challenging your own group.
That's a high bar.
It is. He calls them truth tellers, who have the guts to call out bullshit even when it came from their own side.
Okay, that's significant. It's not just about opposing the usual suspects. It's internal accountability.
Exactly. Prioritizing truth over tribalism, even if it causes friction. He does acknowledge this honor might be raw and flawed, which makes it feel more real, not some impossible ideal.
Right. It's about fundamental integrity, not perfection.
Precisely. Valuing truth even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular within your own circle, that really sets a standard for conviction.
And this integrity, this truth-telling, it seems to flow directly into the next pillar he discusses: independence and defiance of power.
Absolutely. He paints a picture of someone fundamentally anti-authoritarian, someone who isn't looking for external validation from politicians or trends.
How did that show up?
Well, he contrasts their patriotism. It's quiet, lived, fierce. They didn't need a flag the size of a billboard or a Facebook profile soaked in eagles and assault rifles to prove he loved his home. He just lived it quietly and fiercely.
As a direct critique of performative
A
patriotism.
huge critique, yeah. And politically, he asserts this man didn't kneel to power or party. That's a big statement about autonomy. And he adds, they didn't desire a king, but rather dared to be goddamn citizens.
Wow. So a real emphasis on individual dignity and active citizenship over following a leader.
Deeply Republican spirit, yeah.
Yeah.
And he uses these powerful symbols of resistance. This man never kisses the ring, meaning no subservience just because someone's powerful.
Refuses to kowtow.
Right. He's unfit for crowns, implying an innate independence. He's too proud to bow, and maybe the most telling part, too tough to follow weak men with gold names and borrowed backbones.
Borrowed backbones. Oof. That ties back to the earlier point.
It does. It's a complete dismissal of superficial wealth or inherited status compared to true inner strength. It showcases this fierce autonomy where loyalty to self and truth trumps loyalty to party or leader.
That fierce independence really feels like the bedrock of the whole archetype. But before we get to the contrast he draws, there's one more nuance, right? Something about emotional depth.
Yes, and it's crucial. He briefly touches on emotional depth. Despite all the talk of toughness and grit, he makes it clear this man can cry at funerals.
Why is that detail so important?
Because it prevents the archetype from becoming a flat caricature, just a tough guy. It shows a full human being. Strength, in this view, coexists with empathy, sorrow, vulnerability.
So true manliness isn't about not feeling, it's about having the capacity to feel and maybe the courage to show it appropriately.
Exactly. It rounds him out, makes him more real, more human. It challenges those simpler stereotypes.
Okay, so we've built this really detailed picture of the speaker's ideal, true Southern man. Authentic, resilient, moral, courageous, independent, and surprisingly emotionally deep. Rooted in Dirt, not marble.
It's a very specific, deeply felt ideal.
But as you said, the video's power really ramps up when he contrasts this ideal with what he calls the new standard.
Yeah.
He absolutely does not hold back here. So what happens when this ideal meets the modern figures he criticizes, these New Yorkers?
Yeah, the shift is jarring, and the language gets incredibly sharp. He dives right into what he sees as their lacking authenticity and physicality. And he names names, specifically mocking Donald Trump as a New York greaseball with hands softer than an overripe peach.
Wow, that's direct. And very physical.
Extremely. It's a deliberate jab at perceived softness, a total contrast to the calloused hands he values. It implies a life devoid of the kind of labor that, for him, builds character.
I mean, what about the sons?
Even harsher, really. He calls them hair-jailed cartoons playing lumberjack and soulless little guys dipped in deer piss and bravado.
Goodness.
Yeah.
So portraying them as completely fake, just playing a tough guy role.
Totally inauthentic, yeah, performative. The core critique is that they're physically soft, unsuited for real work, lacking the lived experience that matters. Those calloused hands are symbolic for him, and these guys just don't have them in his view.
It really underscores his emphasis on tangible capability versus just appearance.
Absolutely. And it's not just the physical aspect he attacks. He goes right for their foundation, focusing on their entitled and inherited wealth as the complete opposite of self-reliance.
Well, let's put that.
He quotes directly from the source, saying these figures don't work, they don't serve, they don't sacrifice, they don't build or fix or do a goddamn thing, but inherit money and lie about it.
That's a fundamental moral charge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lack of contribution, basic dishonesty.
It is. And he uses symbols like inherited money and gold-plated toilets to represent this unearned status, this detachment from hard work, this perceived vulgarity.
Here's the polar opposite of the poor but proud ideal.
Exactly. It shows his deep disdain for unearned status and his skepticism of inherited power. It's rooted in that work ethic, that self-made dignity.
Okay, so it's not just where they come from, it's how they present themselves too.
Right. He absolutely hammers them for what he sees as performative and inauthentic masculinity. Their whole identity, in his view, is just manufactured.
Manufactured how?
He accuses them of chugging masculinity supplements and playing patriot on sound stages built by Wall Street.
Wow. So manhood as a product, funded and fake, not earned.
That's the image he paints.
Yeah.
Completely artificial, designed for show. And he uses this really raw anecdote to drive it home.
Let's hear it.
He says, if these boys walked into the Queen of Clubs in Hell, Arkansas, they wouldn't make it past the Jeep box.
Okay, that paints a picture, implying they couldn't handle a real rough environment.
Couldn't handle reality,
Yeah.
yeah. Where pretension gets called out immediately, and then he brings in his grandfather.
What about a grandfather?
He says his grandfather would have beat the ever-living dog shit out of them, just out of instinct. Now, he frames this not as promoting violence, but as explaining a gut reaction, a language older than words.
An instinctual rejection of fakeness.
Exactly. He says a fist, in that context, is shorthand for don't tread on me, a primal defense against perceived disrespect and phoniness encroaching on something sacred. It underlines his belief that real masculinity is lived, not staged.
That bar fight image is incredibly potent for conveying that gut reaction. Okay, so moving from performance to character,
Yeah.
how does he assess their actual behavior?
He's absolutely brutal about their lacking courage, humility, and integrity, just devastatingly direct.
How so?
He says flat out they exhibit nothing, not one thing that we were raised to believe makes a man. Not courage, not humility, not grit, not loyalty, not strength of heart or spine or word.
That's a complete write-off based on his standard.
A total dismissal, yeah. And he describes their behavior under pressure as just weak and pathetic. They sweat when it's humid, they pout when it's hard, and they run when it's dangerous.
Stark contrast to the grin-through-pain ideal.
Night and day, and he keeps hitting on their practical uselessness, saying they wouldn't last 5 minutes under a tractor, wouldn't know how to change their own oil.
Again, using practical skills as a proxy for character.
Absolutely. It symbolizes their disconnect from the real hard work of life that, in his view, defines a man. It's a condemnation of what he sees as posturing without substance, comfort without resilience.
And this lack of character, it connects to how they treat others too, presumably.
Oh, definitely. That perceived lack of skill and resilience is deeply tied to his visceral disgust at their disrespectful and morally bankrupt public behavior. He says it turns my stomach because a real Southern man, in his view, just wouldn't stand for how these clowns behave in public.
So it's a violation of that fundamental moral code he talked about earlier.
A profound violation, and again, he lists those specific examples. Mocking the disabled, insulting widows, bragging about assault, attacking working people. He sees these as unforgivable transgressions against basic decency.
And he brings family into it again.
Yeah. Yes, very powerfully. He says his mother would have slapped his mouth clean off for half the things these men say.
Connecting back to the steel and iron women and consequences.
Exactly. It emphasizes how alien these behaviors are to a proper, honorable upbringing, as he defines it. It shows his deep offense at what he perceives as public displays of cruelty and disrespect, especially for the vulnerable.
Okay, so underneath all these critiques, the softness, the entitlement, the performance, the lack of integrity, the disrespect, what's the root accusation?
The root accusation, the ultimate condemnation, really, is that they are fundamentally con men and manipulators, false leaders.
What kind of language does he use there?
Very charged language. He calls them slick-haired frauds and northern con men. And the core of the manipulation, he argues, is tricking Southern men into, quote, licking the boots of power.
Which is the absolute antithesis of that independence he values so highly.
The ultimate betrayal of it, in his view. It reinforces that whole theme of Southern defiance. He repeats those lines. Southerners are unfit for crowns, too proud to bow, and too tough to follow weak men with gold names and borrowed backbones.
Directly positioning these figures as those weak men.
Explicitly. And he uses that metaphor of the ringmaster, suggesting they're orchestrating a whole circus of deception, manipulating the audience. This contrasts sharply with the Southern man who never kisses the ring.
So he sees them as a threat to the very soul of the values he's defending.
An existential threat, yeah. He's deeply worried about this deceptive leadership and how it's corroding, or already corroded, those traditional values and the integrity of the community he envisions.
Wow. Okay, so given this incredibly stark, utterly damning contrast he's drawn between his ideal Southern man and these new standard figures,
Yeah.
where does he go from there? What's the solution? Does he offer a path forward?
He does, but it starts from a place of deep concern, almost despair. He talks about having lost the damn map, lamenting how far we've fallen. It's this sense of profound cultural disorientation.
Like the core principles have been abandoned or forgotten.
Exactly. And he raises the stakes incredibly high for anyone who defends or makes excuses for these new standard figures. He says doing so means you've essentially sold your soul.
Sold your soul. That's incredibly strong language.
It implies a moral betrayal of the highest order, a betrayal of self, of heritage, of the very values he's just spent so much time defining. It's a call for a serious moral inventory.
Okay, so it's called for moral reckoning. How does he suggest people find their way back then? How does he redefine manhood for the present?
He does it very clearly, first by stating what a man is not. He says a man is not inherited money and gold-plated toilets. He's not screaming on a stage while other people fight your wars and pay your debts.
Rejecting the superficial wealth and the performative leadership.
Right, and he's not throwing tantrums on television and calling it truth. Directly hitting at the perceived emotional immaturity and distortion of reality. These are point-by-point rejections of the new standard.
And then what a man is.
Then he pivots to the positive, offering this really clear, action-based definition. A man is what he does when the storms come, resilience in action. He is how he treats people who can't do a damn thing for him, compassion. He is what he says when no one is looking, integrity. And he is how he loves when no one else understands that deep emotional core.
So it all comes back to character demonstrated through behavior, not status or noise.
Exactly. Character forged in hardship and shown through kindness and honesty. It stands in total opposition to the performative, entitled traits he just ripped apart.
Okay, so after redefining it, does he issue a call to action?
Oh, absolutely. It's an urgent, powerful plea. He says, direct commands. Stand up, stop kneeling for fools, stop praising cowards, reclaim whatever dignity that once defined you.
A direct challenge to reject subservience and reclaim self-respect.
Yes. And critically, he specifies how to do it. He says reclamation comes not through cruelty and not through guns or flags or chants, but through truth and courage, through the goddamn backbone that built barns and fought wars and buried family.
That's huge. He's explicitly rejecting certain paths. Cruelty, just waving flags or relying on luck and pointing towards internal virtues.
Internal virtues and that foundational strength, the backbone. It's about character, not aggression or symbolism. And there's this mix of nostalgia and hope when he says, "You used to be better than this, hell. We used to be better than this. Don't let it die with you."
A plea to live up to the best of the past, not just mourn it.
Precisely. It's a challenge to actively embody those values now, to fight against what he sees as this slide into compromise and weakness.
And how does he wrap this up? What's his final vision for the South?
He ends with this broad, defiant vision for the South's identity and future. He reaffirms that core identity. We're Southerners, we're unfit for crowns, we're too proud to bow and too tough to follow weak men with gold names and borrowed backbones.
A declaration of independence and resilience.
Absolutely. And his aspiration is clear. Let the South be known for its integrity and dignity. Let it remember what we claim to be and not what the world thinks we are. It's a call for redemption, really, to live up to their own ideals, not external stereotypes or internal failings.
Does he acknowledge how hard that might be?
He does, with a touch of humility that adds weight. He admits, we've proven them right goddamn often. I'm not sure we know how to prove them wrong, but for the love of God and biscuits, let's try.
Huh. Okay, that adds a very human, almost wry touch. Acknowledging the struggle but refusing to give up.
Exactly, and he concludes with that incredibly potent phrase, defiance until death.
Wow.
That's intense.
It really encapsulates the whole message, this enduring fight for identity, reputation, integrity, especially as he sees it within the Southern context, a desperate yearning for a return to honor no matter the cost.
So, thinking about Brad's initial framing this idea of speaking truth to power, how does Arnold's message connect to that? What is the truth and what is the power here? Well, connecting it all back. This deep dive really explored one very specific, very passionate perspective on what speaking truth to power means within this particular cultural context. The speaker, Arnold, uses this incredibly vivid, raw language, these archetypes,
Right.
to deliver his message about authenticity, honor, and resisting what he sees as fake, weak leadership. For him, speaking truth to power isn't about left versus right politics necessarily. It's much deeper.
How so?
It seems to be about this fundamental commitment to holding everyone, oneself, the community, and especially leaders accountable to this deeply ingrained moral and personal code. The power he's addressing seems to be this new standard of leadership he finds so lacking in integrity and authenticity. The truth he's speaking is rooted in that traditional code of honor, resilience, and independence.
So it's about rejecting perceived fraudulence and reclaiming dignity based on those lived values.
Exactly. It's a call to recognize and reject weakness, manipulation, and inauthenticity in leadership, and to reclaim a dignity rooted in character and that defiant spirit of independence he celebrates.
Okay, we've definitely unpacked a lot today. We've gone deep into Robert Arnold's perspective, his definition of true Southern manhood, and his absolutely scathing critique of what he calls the new standard.
A stark contrast.
An incredibly stark contrast between this old code of quiet integrity, self-reliance, moral backbone, versus a newer, performative, entitled standard that he sees as morally bankrupt. Diving into his words gives us a really clear lens on his definition of speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
A truth based on character, action, and that fierce defiance against false leadership and values he sees eroding. So maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. What does speaking truth to power really mean when the definitions of truth and power are themselves so fiercely debated, especially when they intersect with deeply held cultural values? And how do you see personal virtues connecting with public leadership?
That's a great question to ponder.
Definitely something to chew on. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.